Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Enlightened Connections. And today I'm delighted to welcome Tammy Holsey to the podcast. Tammy is a lifelong horsewoman, author, speaker, and passionate animal advocate from Texas. With decades of experience owning, training, rescuing, and riding horses, she's dedicated much of her life to understanding the extraordinary relationship between humans and animals. She's the author of Checote's Angels, a true story of a horse, a miracle, and the angels who surrounded us. A deeply moving memoir inspired by her beloved horse, Checote. What began as a devastating and seemingly insurmountable journey evolved into an extraordinary journey of healing, resilience, faith, and unexpected miracles. Through that experience, Tammy found herself exploring questions about intuition, spiritual connection, hope, and the profound role animals can play in our lives. Today, through her writing, speaking engagements, and interviews, Tammy shares powerful stories that inspire others to recognize the wisdom, the courage, and unconditional love animals bring into the world. Her work reminds us that some of life's greatest teachers may walk beside us on four legs. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really delighted to be here.
I've got so much to talk to you about, and of course this is going to be all about Checote. But before we move to that beautiful story and that beautiful experience that both of you have had, let's just have a quick look at Tammy. And
Sure.
let's go to your love of horses and where that began and how it led you to Checote.
My love of horses began as a baby. Horsey was my first word. My grandmother started putting me on horseback before I could walk. I was riding by myself and had my own pony at the age of 3. I rode my first bronc at the age of 8. It was a
Wow.
Shetland pony.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes. Um, but yeah, they were just part of my life always. There was a portion of my young adulthood when I didn't have a horse, but I got a divorce and got a horse, and it was a really good trade.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say to you, that sounds like there was a boyfriend interruption there. I think when we girls move from ponies to boys, we have the quick realization that, oh, that probably wasn't a good idea. Sorry to interrupt you, but
that's all
yeah.
right. No, it's great.
So you got back on track, yeah.
I did. I got back on track and reclaimed Tammy. And yeah, I've always had a really strong connection with all animals, in particular horses and dogs, but really all animals. They're very drawn to me, and so I've always been that way.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, that I find people that have this natural born communication connection with animals generally struggle a little with people. Did you find that at all? In terms of the
Oh,
flow of communication is more difficult with people, maybe because people wear masks and animals don't.
yes, but I see through the masks.
Ooh.
So there are some people that I avoid, and I've been that way as a even from a young child. My mom tells the story of her holding me in her arms, I was a toddler, and if somebody would speak to me and just say hi and I didn't want anything to do with them, I'd just turn my head and I wouldn't look at them and I wouldn't respond.
So
And
so you've been tapped into energy from the get-go, really, haven't you?
yes,
You
I
you
really have.
just you hit the energy fields before you hit the people. So
But
how did that lead to Chakotay?
so with Checote, it was kind of an interesting way. I had a horse that I'd had for a number of years, and she became permanently lame. meaning that she couldn't be ridden any longer. And I really, wanted another riding horse. And a friend of mine had purchased a horse at a charity auction, and he owns a 6,000 acre working cattle ranch, and he had bought him kind of as an extra, but the horse was so small that his cowboys didn't really like to ride him very much because he was just so little, and they just kind of, they're big men and they just overpowered him. And whenever I mentioned to my friend that, I was looking for another horse, he said, "I've got the perfect horse for you." And for some reason, I just believed him that he was the perfect horse for me. And I could not wait to meet the horse. And it took a whole month. And I was like counting the hours of every day before, I could get out there and meet the horse that was perfect for me. And when I met him, it was instantaneous on both our parts.
It was just that soul connection there that you were
Yes,
meant for one another. Isn't that
yes.
absolutely beautiful? So tell us about Checote. Tell us, what does he look like? What how what's his color? What Tell us about him so the listeners can get that picture in their mind of him.
Checote was small for a horse. He was only 14 hands, so there's 4 inches in every hand. So he was quite small. He was a pinto, and so his predominant color was a dark brown, not bay, not sorrel, but a dark brown, and then of course the big white patches. But his predominant color was the dark brown, and he had four white stockings, one white sock, a little bitty white on his forehead, and a big patch across his shoulder that went down. And his mane was half white, half brown, and his tail was mostly white. So,
Okay, okay. Well, now that we have a description of him, we can journey with you um,
yes.
on where he took you. So, what happened? I believe like Checote's story is the foundation of the book. Obviously, it's called Checote's
Yes.
Angels. So,
Yes.
can you take us back to the moment of his catastrophic injury and explain to
Yes.
why so many people believed recovery was not possible? What happened?
So Checote and I had been together about 6 years before his terrible accident. And, we had so many awesome adventures. And I had this really powerful, bond with him. But it truly went to a new level after his accident. So I was married to a man who was kind of a city boy. So we didn't have land. And so I boarded him at a boarding facility. It was a very nice place, and the people were wonderful. None of anything that happened to Checote was their fault, and nor was it the fault of their land. But they had a large pasture of about 30 horses, and it was late at night on a July, which in the US, in Texas, that's our summer. So it's extremely hot in July. And it was after dark, and a helicopter buzzed the pasture with their searchlights, obviously looking for someone, but it sent the whole herd into a panic. Cody was normally not afraid of helicopters at all because they literally landed next to him. I'd worked with him with aircraft, but I believe that the fact that the entire herd panicked sent him into a panic as well. Um, the rest of the herd was kind of far back part of the pasture, and Checote was found in the middle of the pasture with his companion horse. So he had this huge black draft mare that was his favorite buddy. They look so funny together because he was so little and she was so huge, but he just adored her. But they were together, just the two of them in the middle of the pasture, and the owners had gone out to the pasture after dark to catch a horse they had recently acquired and ride it in the arena after dark. And the horse that was with Checote, her name was Star, made some unbelievable maneuver. And it was so crazy the owners of the boarding facility could not even describe it to me, but they just stopped dead in their tracks and turned to look at her. Like, did she just do that? Is what they told me. They said to each other, did she just do that? And as they were staring at her, she went into bird dog point position. I don't know if you have bird dogs in Australia, but those are hunting dogs. And when you shoot a bird, the dogs will find the downed bird and then they will point with their whole body. They stretch out their nose, they lift one leg and curl it up underneath them, and their tail goes straight out. And that's their way of showing you where the downed bird is. Okay. So a draft horse went into bird dog point position and was pointing at his leg. I'm quoting them. That is not my words, that is their words. They described it to me. And so they felt very compelled to go see what she was pointing at. And that's when they found this catastrophic injury. The vet said that it was the worst kind of injury a horse could sustain and still survive. And the fact that he was found so quickly and we had him into surgery within an hour of his accident is what saved his life. So that horse saved his life that night. Well, that's one thing that at the time I couldn't explain her behavior, her bizarre, impossible behavior. And Checote's rehabilitation was long. It took a year of rehab and multiple surgeries. And, I started working him on cavalettis. We did massage work. We did chiropractic work. We did stretching. We did all the things. I wrapped his other back leg so it could help, hold his weight, because if you're not familiar with the anatomy of horses, they're very large animals. Fortunately, he was small, but they're very large animals and they're built to be held up on 4 pillars, right? 4 legs.
Yeah.
And to be distributed not quite equally because their front holds more weight than their back. But if one leg goes down, the other 3 take over and they will break down quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we wrapped his other legs to help sustain them while his, injured leg could recover and then slowly begin to take over, more of its weight. So there was a lot of things that we did to help him, including, starting over, how to walk, how to lift that leg. And I had my farrier is absolutely brilliant. And he built him a physical therapy shoe, which actually saved his riding career, that physical therapy shoe. And so much so that equine schools have taken pictures of that shoe because they were so impressed with, oh, this worked so well. Checote, even though he shouldn't have survived that night, and he certainly shouldn't have been rideable again, because his extensor tendons, which are the tendons that are in the front of the leg and they allow the flex of the foot, were completely gone. They weren't damaged, they were gone. So he had to learn how to walk without those tendons. And they don't regrow. I mean, so that was a lifelong thing. From then on, he had no extensor tendons. His flexor tendons were intact, but the area around it was destroyed. But the flexor tendons, is the fact that they were intact was the other reason why he was able to survive, because that's the tendons that give you the forward motion. So he was able to move the leg to step forward.
I think the combination, unbelievable.
Yes.
The combination of his obvious sheer determination, he was not going to give up, combined with, and the same with you, your dedication. I would imagine it would almost have been a 24/7 commitment to him, round the clock, to watch every tiny movement that happened with him, every improvement. I dare say there were some steps backwards at some moments there.
Absolutely.
but you kept moving forward. And, throughout the journey that you experienced with him, there would have been events that challenged your understanding of faith and healing for sure. Was there a particular moment that made you realize something extraordinary was unfolding here?
Yes. So eventually I moved Checote away from that barn to one that was simply closer to my office. Not because I was angry or nothing bad happened. I know his accident was bad, but the people were phenomenal. The property was phenomenal. That wasn't it. I just needed less drive time so I could spend more time with him. So I moved to this other barn. It was a beautiful place, wonderful. And this lady moved into the barn. Her name was Lindsay. And the rumor had it that she was an animal communicator. And she was, we would do these Saturday morning rides. And, this was 2 or 3 years after his accident. And I was riding him by then. And I know, unreal, huh? And we'd been out on the trails that day and we came back and Lindsay and I were just kind of hanging out and talking. People say all kinds of things about new people. So I just went in one ear out the other about her being an animal communicator. But she asked me, she goes, well, how'd he hurt his leg? She couldn't see the injury because I always kept a wrap on it, just to protect it. And I said, well, I'm not really sure. He was just kind of found that way. And she said, well, he's showing me what happened. And she said, I see a lot of horses in the pasture. I see him running, and he ran through the middle of a broken tree, and his leg is caught, and he goes to the ground, and Tammy, there's just so much pain. And he was found next to a tree that forked really close to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And because the grass was crushed at the base of that forked tree, the owners thought that he had been laying down there and had, when the helicopter buzzed, that he had spooked and stuck his leg in the fork of the tree. We
Mm-hmm.
knew the fork of the tree had done the damage,
Mm-hmm.
but him sticking his leg in there, even by accident, did not make any sense to me. But Lindsay's explanation made perfect sense to me. And so I felt, for the first time, I understood what happened that night. But then it got even more interesting. I don't know what made me ask, but I said, does he know who saved his life that night? And of course I'm thinking Star, right?
Yeah.
Because that crazy behavior of, from a horse that you would never see. I mean, it would be hard to train him to do that, much less a natural thing. And she said, well, he keeps talking about the other horse, but I see a lot of horses in the pasture. And I said, oh, he's talking about his girlfriend, Star. And literally, it's summertime again here, so it's very hot, and goosebumps come up on her arms. And she goes, I'm not real sure I should tell you what he said. And I said, oh, you're not stopping there. You better.
No. Yeah.
And she said, he just told me there were two angels in the pasture that told the other horse what to do to get him help.
Okay.
And
Beautiful.
finally, Star's behavior made sense, you know? Um, so
Wow.
Lindsay really helped me a lot with Checote. Checote he had suffered with a condition called string halt. And what that meant was that injured leg would hike really high up to his belly, and then he'd slam that foot down. It's like he didn't have the right kind of control with
Mm-hmm.
the leg. And it'd gotten a lot better. We'd done some things to help him, but he still suffered with it when he was on concrete. And Lindsay stopped it like that. And his string halt stayed away literally for years after she did that. But she just did energy work and she removed. So what was happening is the uh, horses are very, very connected to the ground. When he was on concrete, because he had so much interference in that damaged leg, he couldn't sense where the ground was any longer.
Right.
And she removed that block.
Beautiful.
And it was crazy, but literally the leg didn't have the string halt for years, and not until like the last year or two of his life.
So I guess that changed your views on animal communication. What?
Well,
Well
I
and
didn't
truly.
have any negative views about it at all.
Yeah.
So that I was very grateful, you know, but
Yeah. Wow.
it kind of changed my life in, pre-Lindsay and after Lindsay. So,
Yeah. I was going to ask, that journey so far that you
mhm.
had talked about being with Checote, um, was there a turning point in that journey that made you realize that your experiences with him went kind of beyond the ordinary horse-human relationship?
Yes, because it went even further. So, I mean, even during his recovery, he was he trusted me so implicitly that if I wasn't there, the vets couldn't get near him. They couldn't change his bandage. They couldn't look at him. If I wasn't there, they'd have to sedate him to get near him. He would take pot shots at people's heads with that leg, saying, keep away, keep away, keep away. But if I was there, he'd stand perfectly still, and he was an utter gentleman. And the vets would say, this is a completely different horse when you're not there. They couldn't believe how different he was. And that's kind of where it started, that this was pretty extraordinary. But more things happened. After, Lindsay got called away to another state. And so, she moved out of Texas and went somewhere else with her beautiful gray horse. Um, and then, months later, a new lady moves into the barn. And I was carrying a water bucket to Checote's stall, and I see this new face. And I'm friendly, so I stop and say hello and introduce myself. And she was friendly back. And she said, which horse is yours? And I said, well, Checote's my horse. He's in this stall right here. And then the one behind him, I also had another horse at the time. Those two are mine. And she just looks shocked. And she goes, this horse in this stall is yours? And I said, yes. Why? And she goes, well, I don't want you to think I'm crazy, but I have the ability to see angels. And there are two angels with your horse that never leave him, and they are in the stall with him now. And she said, and what's crazy is that I've rarely seen an animal with its own angel. I've never in my life seen two, not within an animal, never. And I just stood there in shock for a minute. And finally I said, I know.
Oh,
But, it just wasn't what I expected. I mean, and this was the lady's first day at at our barn. So it's not like she had had a chance to hear rumors, but I didn't go around the barn telling people my horse had angels, either. It's just not
yeah.
something you tell people, at least not that point in my life. I do now, but back then,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
So then months later, I'm in the wash rack and I'm changing Checote's bandage. He had twice a week bandage changes, even years and years and years later. This was a lifelong thing, from then on. And so I'm changing his bandage, and she walks by us, and then she stops and she's staring at us, and she said, the bond between you and your horse is so strong, I literally see it. There is a thread of light that goes between your forehead and his. And it's so vibrant, it just glows. And that's a soul connection, and it's in the Bible. And I just said, that makes sense because I feel that. I feel him when he's wanting to tell me something. I sense his moods. I sense his needs. I sense his wants, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
I believe
and
that.
he's mine too. He would get me too. So that made sense.
Yeah, I believe with all my heart and all my soul that our animal companions, you know, are here for us as much as we're here for them. And it's interesting how incredible that both Lindsay and the next lass, who had different skills, both spoke to you about the angels there. But it's interesting because before I started this recording and we were getting to know each other, I mentioned to you that what attracted me to your story was this overwhelming love that I felt, almost like a sea of love that I couldn't quite. And I've spoken to a lot of people that have horses and horses that have people, but this was different. There was something about this connection with you and Checote that just kind of was elevated. It was different. So
He
as
was my
we're
soulmate.
without doubt, without doubt. So that I just wanted to kind of reiterate on that I'm glad I was tapped into what is happening here with you and Checote. So let's keep going on this journey. So we'll dabble a little bit into the book here, the book Checote's Angels, a true story of a horse, a miracle, and the angels who surround us. So your book highlights not only resilience in animals, because let's face it, look what he was
Yes.
absolutely adamant he wasn't going anywhere, but also resilience in the humans who love them. So what lessons would you say, or what, yeah, I guess lessons, and the main lesson maybe, did Checote teach you about trust, about perseverance, and about hope during the most difficult times?
Well, two things I'll say. One is that um, Checote remained my main riding horse. After that devastating injury, I moved cattle with him. We ran flat out. His favorite thing next to running was swimming. He loved to go swimming. We competed in our one. I don't have a competitive bone in my body, so don't ask me how I got drug into this, but we competed into a play day that happened at the barn. I had never even seen a play day. I didn't know what these classes were, much less competed in one. They'd have to describe to me what I needed to do before I'd go into each one of these classes that I joined.
Mm.
He won a placement in every single one we joined. He won a fourth, a third, and a first
Wow.
with no extensor tendons because he didn't give up. He just flat didn't give up. But let me tell you what else happened. We went riding one day. We would go riding every Saturday morning, big group of us, we'd ride the trails. And there's this barn had amazing trails, right? You could ride off of the barn property and just go into miles of a labyrinth of trails. And I knew them all. And we could spend hours out there, just beautiful, beautiful trails. And we'd go Saturday mornings, and then a bunch of us would usually go to lunch on, in the afternoon after we were finished riding and cleaning up. But this particular day, we'd all gone riding, but there was only two of us that could go to lunch that day. And one of them was the lady that could see angels
Mm-hmm.
and me.
Mm-hmm.
So while we're at lunch, she gets this really strange look on her face and she said, Checote just got another angel. And I said, is this in addition to or instead of? And she goes, no, no, the other two never leave him and they never will. This angel has come in for a particular purpose. Checote's going to have to help somebody. And this angel will guide him in that.
Oh, I've got shivers.
And I had a million questions: what, where, when, how. She said, I can't see that. All I know is that it'll be important and it's going to be soon. And 10 days later, after work, I go out to the barn, no intention of riding. And I'm in shorts and tennis shoes. And I don't even have boots in the truck. And I'm pulling Checote out of his stall, and I look up, and there's two incoming horses from the trails, riderless, at a dead run. And they were belonged to my friends, Jean and Brigitta. You know, riderless horses are never a good sign,
No,
you know.
no, no.
So, you know, I grabbed him, handed him off to somebody. I don't even know who I gave him to, threw a bridle on Checote, jumped on him bareback, and hit the trails. I didn't think. I had no saddle, no boots, no idea where they were. But what I knew in my heart is that my friend Jean was hurt. And I knew she was hurt bad. With every fiber of my being, I knew Jean was hurt and we had to get to her. The problem was I didn't have a clue where they were. Like I said, it's a labyrinth of trails. There's tons of options, you know, to go out there. I didn't know how long they'd been gone. I wasn't there when they left. So I didn't even know how far away they were. So I laid the reins down on his neck and I said to him out loud, Checote, Jean's hurt. You need to take me to Jean. Find Jean. And he took off at a run. And he wasn't wandering, he wasn't searching, he was deliberate in his turns, and he took a very deliberate path. He went down the embankment, crossed the creek, got across the creek, and he went left, which is where we would go 90% of the time, and he came to the fork in the trail. 100% of the time I had been down this trail, I had taken the left fork. He took the right fork, a trail he'd never been down. There was a reason I never took him down that trail, because that trail led you straight into a gravel quarry. Heavy machinery, men working, loud noises, danger. Certainly not a place that you take a horse with very sensitive, you know, nervous systems, very overwhelming. He didn't hesitate. And he took off into that gravel quarry. And when we reached the quarry, he took a left and went straight to the gravel pit, which is that big cavernous industrial bowl of where they mine the, you know, dirt and gravel.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I saw the angel in front of him. And we ran in a flat run halfway around the rim of that pit. The angel disappeared. Checote stopped. I mean, dead stopped. And I'm like looking around and I don't see anything or anybody. So I pull my cell phone out and I called Brigitta. She answered on the first ring and she said, we're right below you. And I looked at the bottom of the pit and that's where they were. He took me straight to them. And as it turns out, that was the most direct route to get to them. The absolute most direct route. I've ridden on the rim of that pit a million times. But I always took the left fork and took this meandering path, you know, winding around inside the woods and, you know, that takes you 20 minutes to get to it. We took 5. So we slid down the wall of that gravel pit. You know, I needed to see what I could do to help. Jean was so injured. She was on the ground. It never registered on her that to her that we were there.
Yeah.
And Brigetta said, I said, what can I do to help? And she said, I've called for rescue. They can't find us. Will you please ride out to the road and flag them down and bring them back here? And I could hear the sirens going back and forth,
Yeah.
up and down the road. They kept missing the entrance into the gravel quarry because it was overgrown and there was no signage. So it was really hard to see unless you knew it was there, and they didn't know where it was. So we hit the wall of that pit in an explosion, and he just took off again. When he got on top, he went into another flat run. We ran all the way into the gravel quarry again. Let me paint the picture there. There was a conveyor belt that was taking sand and gravel up and dumping it into a huge metal bin. This metal bin was the size of a room, and it was way over our heads. And the noise from that was just deafening. And we're under it. And he never hesitated. I forced him to slow down, but he was like in an extended trot, trying to get to the road. It's like he understood where we were going. And then, I mean, there's heavy machinery going all over the place, men, in those tractors and, whatever, excavators, all the things. And then there's these two ponds of water, and the road that we're on, or trail, is high in the middle of these two ponds. There's a giant diesel engine running with a water pump pumping water from one pond to the other. The hose that is the water is being carried through is the size of a fire hose, and it's stretched across the ground where we have to go over, and it's vibrating so intently on the ground, it's like bouncing on the ground. He steps over it like it's nothing. His, as a horse, that should have been a horse eating monster on the ground,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was like it was nothing. The reason that he never hesitated, every time we went through there, I still continued to see the angel. It was right there in front of us. And he was still following it. And we got to the road. I flagged down the first rescue vehicle. He was so trying to get back to Jean. He kept outrunning the rescue vehicle. They couldn't go that fast because the trail was so, uneven, not without jarring their teeth out of their head. But anyway, I kept having to slow him down. Wait for him, wait for him. And so we get to the area where they can get down to Jean, and they said, well, I've got two more vehicles behind us. Will you go flag them down? They're never going to find this. And so we made two more trips. So we went through that gravel quarry 8 times. And every single time I saw the angel, every single time. And I've been asked, what did the angel look like? What did the angel feel like?
I won't
It
ask that.
was,
You've probably described it a million times, but
no, it didn't, it wasn't this bright white, angel like you see. It was more muted colors. It wasn't dramatic. Yeah, I could clearly see wings, and there was like a form, between them, but it was just kind of like misty, you
yeah.
know, um, like not totally fully formed, but definitely I could see it with the naked eye. But even when I couldn't see it, I could sense its presence. And the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, good, you're there.
Wow.
Now I know we're going to the right spot. You're there. And until I saw it, it never occurred to me this was Checote's mission to save Jean.
Normally you can't stop me talking, but His story overwhelms.
It is overwhelming. Try writing it. It was really,
Actually, I
really,
think it should be a movie. It should really be a movie. This
well,
is phenomenal.
it's going to be.
This is phenomenal. Um,
It's going to be a movie where actually I found the horse to play Checote. We've filled most of the roles, and yeah, we're
Tammy,
gonna be starting to film.
I take it Checote is no longer with us. He's with the
He passed
angels
4 years.
now.
He is. Well, he's with me always.
Yeah.
I feel him, I see him, I hear
Well,
him,
you're one
I
of his
smell him.
angels, aren't you? You're one of
He's
his
one of mine,
angels.
and he's mine. Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, he passed 4 years ago at the age of 27.
Wow. What a mission. What a mission. Um,
But that event brought us so much closer. That's when I started hearing him clearly in my mind. I could hear him when it was important. And I had another horse at Appaloosa, and I could hear her too when it was important. I could hear her asking for help twice when she colicked. And both times I was distracted and doing something else. One time I was sitting in the exact chair I'm sitting in right now working, and I heard her, and I flew down the stairs and found her at my back fence colicking. And I heard her on a trail ride. She was tied up at the trailer, and I was talking with friends, and I knew she was in distress, and I got up and ran and got to her, and it was another colic. But she was dehydrated because she didn't like the taste of the water on the trail ride. So,
did these connections open up for you after your experience with Chakotay? So
yes,
he was very much the
where
catalyst.
he was the catalyst for me understanding it. So when I was young, I used to take it for granted, you know, and my mom used to tell me how I used to talk for my animals. I say, no, the duck said this, whenever because I had a pet duck. And, but that kind of disappeared because they thought it was funny, because I was 2 years old and talking for my duck.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, I learned to hear him. And the last time, uh, the day before I let Checote go, the string halt was back, and it was back in spades. And he was having a really, really hard time, making his way to the pasture. And he couldn't keep up with the herd any longer. I mean, he was 27, and he couldn't keep up with the herd any longer. His leg was just falling apart on him, and he had extended hospital stays. He had lots of vet care, but it just didn't make any difference. It was just time.
Yeah.
And I always reserved. I have like feeding pens that are covered and protected, but I have a barn, and that was Checote's place to eat because he was the most important. And now I live out in the country. I have my own place. So, but um, he always got the place of honor to eat and stay. And I waited and waited for him, and he was just slowly making his way to the barn. Everybody else was penned up and fed, and I'm still waiting for him to make his way. And he goes through the doorway of the barn, and he falls into the door frame. I mean, just kind of look like he loses his balance, and the door frame catches him. I mean, he didn't go down, but he turned and looked at me, and I heard him as clear as if he had spoken English. He said, "It's time, and I need your help." So I know. I said out loud, "Okay." I'll help you tomorrow. I kept my promise. He was ready.
Mm.
But 2 years prior to that, um, we had, maybe it was 3 years prior to that, I was to the point where I was going to go on this big horseback riding trip, and we were going to go to South Dakota, which is a 2-day drive, and take the horses and ride up in the hills of South Dakota. It's going to be so cool. And there's like 22 of us that are going, and it's so exciting. And I was telling Checote all about it. And I heard him say, I can't do that anymore. And that really hurt my heart, not be able to take my best friend on this amazing trip, And so I decided I was going to take Gemini. And Gemini was young. I'd rescued him out of a kill pen, a few years prior, and I'd been working him, and he was not affected by a devastating accident, and devastating injury, and he still had the stamina of a young horse. So I made the decision finally one night that I was going to take Gemini. And so the next day I went out, while I'm feeding them, and I decide I'm going to tell Checote, I'm going to take Gemini instead. And they happened to be in pens next to one another eating their dinner. And I'm standing outside the panel at Checote while he's got his head down in the bucket eating. And I said, Checote, I've decided that it is going to be too much for you to go on this trip, and I'm going to take Gemini instead. And he pulls his head out of the feed bucket. Now that right there is a phenomenal thing for a horse to lift up from their feed, right? He looks me straight in the eye, and it was like I heard an acknowledgement. And then he turns and faces the panel separating him and Gemini, and puts his head inside the pen of Gemini. Gemini leaves his feed and meets Checote nose to nose. And I heard Checote say, "You better take good care of my girl."
Wow. At some point, I'm going to stop crying through this interview because it is just.
You should read the book.
I don't think I can. I don't think I can read the book. I can't even get through listening to you talking about it. This is just the most powerful story of love and compassion and guardianship and a journey that you hear once in a blue moon. You really do. The only similar story I've heard is the one of I think his name was Snowball. Harry somebody rescued a big
Yes.
grey
Yes.
and
I'm very
paid
familiar with that story.
yeah and paid pittance, and this horse out of love and gratitude went on to be an Olympic show jumper, winning.
Yes.
It was a fantastic story, but this is again a very different story, but not dissimilar, not dissimilar.
Right.
So after I pull my big girl socks up and stop sniffling and crying, by the way, you have to let us know when this movie has been made.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know if we'll get to see it publicly in Australia, but I am sure that there will be a way that you can give us that opportunity to see this story, because this country is full of people, horse
Yes, ma'am, it
lovers.
is.
And this story, it cannot go unwatched. It cannot go unheard. And I, for one, feel extremely honoured that you have shared this story of yourself and I wasn't prepared for this. I've read your website, read everything. I was not prepared for this. This is extraordinary. The love is
Yes,
profound.
yes,
Um,
that's what you sensed,
that's what I
right? You
sensed.
tapped into, yes.
I should have buckled up a bit better before so anyway, that's us, right? And I'm okay with that. I'm not ashamed of that. Love is love, and it's beautiful. And Checote has not opened just your heart and the hearts of those that he came into physical contact with, but clearly he's going to open the hearts of the listeners as well, and that's a gift that I thank you both profoundly for.
Thank you.
Um,
He changed a lot of people's lives, you know,
yeah,
certainly
well, he
Jean's.
he ain't finished yet.
Yes.
He ain't finished yet. But
Yep.
for listeners, for listeners who might currently be facing something like a health crisis or a loss or a challenge, with a beloved animal companion, not everybody has the blessing to be able to receive the messages from their animal companions. They have the ability, but not everybody experiences it. It could be they don't believe it, or they don't expect it, or they're not open to it, whatever reasons. But for people that might be facing that, and may not be blessed with hearing it's time and I need your help to go now, which of course gives you some strange sense of peace and relief, because you don't have to wrestle with, did I do the right thing? Was it the right time? Da 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 da. You knew, you knew.
Yes, I did.
But for those who may not know, um, what would you most want them to know from Checote's story about their own animal companions?
You know, you can't get any closer to an animal than I was to Checote. Losing him was devastating. But I knew it was the right thing. You know in your heart when it's the right time. You know it. Whether or not you may not be the right time for you, but you know it's the right time for them. And you can't be selfish. You have to listen to them because they will tell you when it's time. The problem is it's sometimes hard to get out of your own head, right? And get through your emotions. I was blessed that I heard the words so clear. It was almost like he had spoken out loud. And I understand that not everybody, and actually very few, are able to hear that. You have to just get quiet and open yourself, open your heart, open your mind. Animals are sentient beings. They have thoughts and feelings and joy and anger and, emotions like we do. Not, well, similar anyway. And you have to open your mind to the possibility and accept that they will and can communicate with you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I suspect at this moment listeners are going, where can I get this book? I want to read the book. I want to hear more about Checote's story. So, okay. So the book is called, again, I will repeat this, Checote's, that's Checote, apostrophe S, Checote's Angels, a true story of a horse, a miracle, and the angels who surrounded us, by Tammy Holsey. Now, the best way for people to get this book would
Amazon.
be through your Amazon. Amazon.
Yes, yeah. It's the
Okay,
only way to get it. I don't have it in any brick and mortar stores. I didn't publish to Ingram Sparks. I only published to Amazon.
that's
I
okay.
will publish to Ingram Sparks at some point in time, but I just wanted to see how it was going to land on Amazon. I did become a bestseller there for a while, so I guess it's going to
Wow.
do okay. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I will also have the link to the book at
Oh, great.
Amazon
Thank
in
you.
the show notes. And if
Yes.
anybody would like to, I actually don't have your website
I I don't have a
details.
web. Yeah, I know. I don't have any. I'm sorry. I've got to do that. I will send it to you later if when I get it up and running. But there is a I'm on Facebook. I don't know if anybody else on here is on Facebook, but I'm on
I think
Facebook.
most people are on Facebook here, but
There
what would
there
your
is a
page?
there is a Checote page on Facebook. So
All
if you
right.
just type in his first name, Checote, you can find his page.
Well, I'll do
And
that, and I will put the link in the show notes as well, so it makes it easier for the listeners to come to you. I'm sure they'll have some questions, and um, yeah, just full.
And the book is available in Australia. I've had several friends order it that live in Australia, so it is available there.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you told me that. So I'm gonna go out looking for that book, and I'm gonna get myself a copy. Tammy, you've given us so much detail today, and I ask my guests one question, and that question is, if you had one message for the world right now, what would your message be?
You're never really alone.
That's it. Do you see the angel anymore?
No, it's the one and only time I ever saw it. But sometimes I sense them. And I certainly sense Checote. I have seen him. I have heard him. I have felt him. I hear him nicker. You know, if you have horses, they're nickers.
Yeah.
It's one horse versus another. I've I've had all of my horses up in pens and I hear him nickering in the pasture.
Wow.
And there's no horse in the pasture. I hear
Yeah.
him. I hear his nicker. Another thing is I have another horse that's her name. I've got six right now, but her name is Pebbles. And Pebbles now eats in the barn. And um, I was sitting on the barn porch waiting for the horses to finish eating, looking out over the pasture and missing Checote. And Pebbles walked up behind me and laid her head on top of my head, just like Checote used to do. Is the one and only time she's ever done it.
There is so
Was right when I
much.
was listening to him. Yeah, I was just thinking of him and missing him really bad. And I got this comfort, of her just dropping her head right on top of mine.
We really are all connected, aren't we?
Yes.
Whether it's here or whether it's the spirit world, we really are all connected and nobody ever really leaves us. They just take a different form.
Yes. One thing I will kind of give you a little enticement to read the book. I did have another encounter with the angels. Didn't see them, but I sure felt them. And you'll have to read it. It's in the last
I
chapter.
love that. I love that.
Uh-huh.
That's a real teaser. Okay. Tammy Horsley, it has been an extraordinary experience with you today. I'm sure
Thank
the
you.
world could have ended and I wouldn't have even known. I was so
Thank
ensconced
you.
in yours and Checote's story that you will no doubt continue together to do more
Thank you.
beautiful work together.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for this gift. Thank you.
Thank you for the format and letting our story be told because I really feel like it's important. It's important for people to hear. People need to know they're not alone.
100%. 100%. Thanks for everything, both of
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.